All right, so today we're jumping into a really fascinating book by Dan Ariely called Predictably Irrational. It's all about the hidden forces that mess with our decisions. It kind of gets to the bottom of why we don't always do what's best for us and why our mistakes might not be so random after all.
Okay, let's just dive right in with something I'm pretty sure we've all felt. You promise yourself, okay, this is it. I'm gonna diet. But then the dessert cart rolls by, and suddenly all those good intentions just poof, vanish. What is going on there? Or how about this one? It sounds crazy, but why does a 50-cent aspirin seem to zap your headache, but an identical aspirin, the exact same pill that costs just 1 cent, doesn't really seem to work? It points to something really powerful happening in our minds. And of course, the classic. Why do we get so genuinely excited buying stuff we absolutely do not need? Now, look, these aren't just random little quirks. They are really common patterns in how we all behave. And to really get where this is all coming from, we have to start with a pretty tragic personal story from the author. You see, for Dan Ariely, this whole journey of discovery didn't start in some fancy university lab. Nope. It started in a hospital bed after a terrible, life-changing accident. When he was only 18, a magnesium flare exploded right beside him, and it left him with horrific third-degree burns. We're talking 70% of his body. Just let that sink in. This injury put him in a hospital for 3 long years, watching the world from a bed. He was completely wrapped in bandages, and it made him feel like an outsider looking in. But this gave him a totally unique vantage point. He became this keen observer of human behavior, questioning all the strange, sometimes illogical things the people around him were doing. And maybe his most profound insight came from something he had to endure every single day, the agonizing process of having his bandages removed. So check this out. The nurses had one theory, and Dan had a totally different reality. It's a huge disconnect. They thought, let's just rip the bandages off quick, a short, sharp pain, and it's over. But for him, that was absolute torture. He knew that a slower, less intense removal would have been way less agonizing, especially with all the fear and dread leading up to it. Their logic just completely missed what he was actually experiencing.
And it made him wonder, right? How could these nurses, with all their experience, be so wrong about this? He realized pretty quickly they weren't being cruel, they were just stuck in their own biases, and all that experience they had wasn't doing anything to fix it.
So this whole awful ordeal, it actually sparked a new mission for him. He started to question the conventional wisdom, not just accept it. He designed experiments to test what was really going on. And guess what? He proved his gut feeling was right. People actually feel less pain with longer, lower intensity treatments.
And here it is, the big aha moment. If these kind, well-meaning, experienced nurses could be so fundamentally wrong, well then maybe we're all wrong. Maybe every single one of us is prone to making the same kinds of mistakes over and over again.
So let's see how this one personal insight grows into this huge challenge to a really old, really powerful idea about what it means to be human. For centuries, really, this is how we've seen ourselves, right? Shakespeare nailed the popular opinion we're noble in reason, almost godlike in our ability to think. And this idea is at the very heart of standard economics, the belief that, deep down, we are rational beings. And this slide just lays out the battle perfectly. In one corner, you have standard economics, which says we're rational, we weigh all the options, and if we mess up, the market will sort us out. But in the other corner, you have behavioral economics, Ariely's field, which paints a totally different picture. It says, nope, we're often illogical, and worse, we make the same dumb mistakes over and over. But here is the absolute key to everything. The whole point. Our mistakes aren't random. They're not just chaotic flukes. They're systematic, and they are repeatable. They follow a pattern. And that, my friends, brings us to the title of the book and its core concept, Predictably Irrational. It's this powerful idea that because we make the same kinds of mistakes again and again, our irrational behavior, well, it actually becomes predictable. So what's the big takeaway here? Why should you care? Well, understanding that our craziness is predictable is an incredibly powerful tool. It's like getting a new lens for seeing the world. It matters because suddenly we can understand our own baffling decisions, with dieting, shopping, saving money, all of it. We can start to anticipate the mistakes other people are going to make, and with that knowledge, we can design better systems, better policies, and maybe, just maybe, start to make slightly better decisions ourselves. And that's really where the adventure begins, isn't it? This is just scratching the surface. The real goal of the author is to get you to turn this lens on yourself and ask this question: what could you do differently now that you have this new way of understanding how our brains are wired?